All right. And we are going. Try and remember everything you wanted. Okay. So, welcome to live from Studio Venus. I'm joined by TroyNickle, and we are in Studio Venus, actually, is where we're meeting today. So we're going to get to know Troy's work. And I was just saying to Troy that although we've kind of known each other for a long time, we haven't been able to have like a nice hour and a half chat. So I'm looking forward to it. So that's how it is in Lethbridge sometimes. And one of the reasons it's kind of nice to have the show and the podcast is it gives us a chance to get to know artists in our city, especially now where we're social distancing more
I
too.
know, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice because there's so many. Well, I can't wait. Hopefully at one point there'll be every single artist I have interviewed in the city.
You'll have the whole city
and
of
because we
Lethbridge.
have musicians and poets, and I think I'll be at this.
You got your job cut out for you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I'll have to pass it on. But welcome to Live from Studio Venus. It's a Jess FM and television show as well as a podcast, both hosted by me, Laura Lee Edwards, and like I say, this is TroyNickle. So
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. So where did you grow up? Where are you from?
I grew up in Lundbreck, Alberta.
Oh,
so
nice.
not very far from here.
Yeah.
And so I grew up in a small town.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of my childhood roaming in the mountains, fishing. I had a dirt bike when I was younger.
Yeah.
I would go dirt biking. I did all the redneck things you can think of. I shot guns. But I also spent a lot of time as a child, just having to use my imagination whenever I was. Often we would be told, get out of the house, or otherwise you get put to work.
Yeah.
And so we'd go and we'd find things to do. Like we'd make forts. We would go out and I had the whole countryside of near Lundbreck to roam around in.
So where were you? Were you right in the village of Lundbreck?
Yeah, we grew up right in town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. It's so.
It's a nice area. Yeah.
It is. My sorry to interrupt you just as you get started, but my friend started, or not started, but had a restaurant in the Lundbreck restaurant. That's sort of the only restaurant space there for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And his wife was school teacher actually at Lundbreck High School.
Who was his wife?
Valerie Sherwood.
Okay, might have been not while I was there.
Yeah, it might have been.
Yeah.
Actually, it could have even been. I wonder if it was before you.
I probably left.
Probably, yeah. Maybe
then.
It was after you.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. So you grew up in Lundbreck. You're in all around by nature and exploring all kinds of.
Yeah, so I had a pretty good childhood. I think, like in terms of just having a lot of freedom, and my grandparents lived in the Crowsnest Pass. And my uncles would. Often I would spend this good part of the summer in the pass with my grandparents, and my uncles would take me out and take me fishing all the time. And so, I kind of grew up in nature, a lot of times spending my time in nature and in the outdoors and that sort of thing. So. And
did you respond then as well? Like as a kid, did you respond to nature in an artistic way at all? Was that something that...
Oh yeah, like as a young kid, like I was into art as a young kid. Like even when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was into drawing.
Yeah.
And I would sketch and doodle. I used to like to do cartoons and things like that.
Yeah.
And landscape scenes. I always wanted to. I grew up watching Bob Ross, so sometimes it was like I wish I could paint like Bob Ross. There was a point in my life when I wish I could paint like Bob Ross. And,
I think we've all have.
Tried to get the fan brush and do the trees with the fan brush, and
it never looks like he does it. It never. Mine just looks sort of like stickly little. Yeah.
But
that's what we were taught was good art. Like that's what or at least for me.
Yeah.
That's what I was always taught. Sort of. A direct representation was something that So
when I was young, that was impressive at the time. It was interesting, and it was amazing what he could do with so quickly and just so out of his imagination. Although they all look kind of similar, they all had a lake and a mountain.
Now that we think about it, his imagination wasn't that extensive.
Yeah. I grew up making art, and then just being outdoors. has had an influence on my art to this day. Like, it still influences the art that I make.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things, my dad would make me chop firewood, and I would have to pile firewood, and I have to carry firewood, and I have to load it and start the fire, and so I had a really strong connection with firewood. And then now later, I'm doing woodcut prints, prints of trees.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting because it's connecting back to that part of me that was young and a child and with my dad.
Yeah.
And then it's also like the woodcut prints are, they're interesting in that the trees themselves are beautiful. Like the rings, just having the rings, being printing the rings, and just that whole process of allowing the tree to be seen and almost stepping out of the way. Like not really wanting to. In some ways, I alter some of the trees that I print, but in some ways, it's just stepping out of the way and allowing nature to speak for itself, almost allowing nature to be the forefront of the work.
Mm-hmm. And so do you, when you do those, guess we'll just jump right in. It's good to jump in and about. That's kind of how I work. At least, did you sand the top, or is it literally just a?
Yeah, there's a whole process. So after the tree's cut, there's the chainsaw marks, which are quite uneven, and you wouldn't be able to get a good print.
Right.
So there's a process of planing the stump first.
Right.
Once you plane it, then I take a belt sander.
I'll put on some pictures, some nice pictures, so that they can see what they look like.
So after you plane it, then you want to belt sand it with a heavy grit, and then you go to a finer grit, and then you use a palm sander at the end to get your fine grit. And after that point, it should be quite smooth. And then after that's done, you have to take a blowtorch and you char the surface of the wood.
Oh, that's what you do.
And what that does is it burns away the earlier spring and summer growth in the wood. Yeah. And the winter, the late fall and winter, is harder, so that the softer wood burns away, leaving more of a ridge. And then after you char it, then you brush away the burnt ash. Yeah. With the toothbrush, and then you clean it. And then once it's clean, then you got to seal it with a shellac. Oh, wow. And then once it's sealed, that way the ink doesn't absorb into the wood. Right. And you get more ink on your paper. Yeah. And then you print from it, and you roll it up, and then you put the paper on it, and then I usually use the back of a spoon to rub the whole thing.
Do you do those? See, I love doing the rubbing prints, but that's a lot of rubbing that you would have to do, because some of those prints are... Yeah. I've had some big ones that are, like this big. Yeah. In there. So do you do them on site? No, you can't, because if you're planing them and everything. Not really, no.
I think they'd be interesting to go to cut blocks and do some on site, but it just, you'd have to have cordless tools, and, it'd be really challenging to do. Yeah. It'd be very difficult. Unless you had a generator or something, but it's kind of intrusive. I'm not sure if that's where I want to go there.
I don't know. Yeah, recording nature. Yeah. Meanwhile, taking with your generator going. But so you went to school there. What did you do after high school?
Well, I left home at 17. I actually I wasn't getting along with my dad very well. We were kind of at wit's ends with each other, and so I ended up living with my aunt in Calgary. And I went to Calgary, and I finished my last year of high school in Calgary. And I had a great art teacher who basically helped me get my portfolio together to get into Alberta College of Art and Design. Oh. So then I applied to ACA, ACAD at the time, and I got accepted. And so that was a big kind of moment for me, because getting accepted to art school gave me a lot of direction. I wasn't really sure where I was going after high school, and having that outlet to go to art school was a really good thing. Yeah. So was it in high school and sort of taking that class that you were like, oh, maybe I can actually do something with this, or it just was your passion and you knew this is... I knew I could make the work, but I just had a really good teacher who would help us prepare our portfolio to apply to college. Which is a really big deal. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd be probably scrambling and not sure what to put in. She knew kind of what kind of studies to put in. Yeah. To help you, we did classical draped studies, showing the kind of Renaissance period, where the drapery was a big thing. And so, there was that. There was figure drawings, and there was also, you know, a variety of work that showed different skills in different areas. So yeah, as well as conceptual ideas as well. Yeah.
And is ACAD a 2-year program or a 4-year program or a?
It was a 4-year diploma program. Now it's a degree program. It's called what's it called now? Calgary.
I don't know.
It's a it's a university now, I think.
Oh,
so,
really?
Yeah.
So that's why it's not ACAD anymore.
It's not ACAD.
It's just Alberta College of Art.
Yes, it might be
something.
Might
But they took design off
University
now.
of Art or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Alberta University of Art or something.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I should know this.
Well, I guess we both should, but we don't.
Yeah.
But we can put up what it is actually.
Up.
But I didn't know that they were now. So you can do like your BFI there or BFI.
BFA, yeah.
BFA.
They had transitioned to that for a number of years. When I was I'd gone in high school, and then I'd left actually after high school. Or after high school, I'd gone for a year and a half, and then I withdrew and moved out to the mountains in Lake Louise, and then I came back to ACAD again 3 years later, and they were transitioning at that time to try to get more of a degree program.
Oh, see, it was meant to be.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And did you have some good space time in Lake Louise and in the mountains?
It was a big part of it. It influenced my life in a big way. Like I mean. And it opened the door to connecting more, like my practice being more centered around nature.
Yeah.
Like part of it was living in this national park where the rules, there's kind of a sense of an environmental stewardship that everyone who lives there kind of, in a sense, respects the environment. And there's a level of environmental awareness in that place that there isn't in a lot of other places. Like people are aware of treating the environment with respect and how important it is to have a beautiful place because you're living there and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And you know, like you're surrounded by mountains with glaciers on them, and you know you can go hiking, you can go snowboarding. And you're also in an international community of young people, like like
true,
1,000 young people, all between the ages of 18 to 35. You know, most of them, and
from
so
all over the world.
From all over the world, yeah. So it's an international community. It's not even like it's like its own place, like you know, different from anywhere else. It was a very neat place. I met a lot of really influential friends, who kind of maybe. Influenced me in a lot of ways, musically and also philosophically, and you know, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Oh, well, it sounds like it was absolutely meant to be. Then you got to go and sort of get started and have a bit of that base almost in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah.
And then when you're experiencing everything there, then you're like, oh, actually, I have so much to say now too, right?
Yeah. After I left Lake Louise, I really wanted to focus on art again.
Yeah.
And while I was living there, I did a little bit of art, but I didn't have a chance to really focus on it like I did when I came back to Calgary.
Yeah.
And when I went back to Calgary, I started working, sculpting the figure. I took a class with Katie Owie, and it was an elective on figure sculpture.
Yeah.
And so we were focusing on having a live model in class and sculpting from a live model.
Wow.
And so I was trying to work. We would do a bust study, a portrait of the model, and then we'd also do a figure. But I was trying to work like almost life size.
Oh my goodness!
So it was really interesting, and through that I felt like I was able to really connect with the figure, and that kind of carried through in my art as well.
Yeah.
The theme of the presence of the human body in my work. So.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I remember when I sort of first became aware of your work, I had said, oh, it looks like Anna
Mendiata.
There you go. Because it had that connecting in with nature and using a lot of things in nature, and I loved her work. So it was so neat, and it's neat to see how you've done that, but you've also just expanded it and taken it different, and I don't know, sometimes now when I look at your work, it's more like it still is very representational, but not as obvious. So it's still very, you can see the hand work in it, or you can see those things that remind you body, but not as a draw body. Not there's anything wrong with that either. But just sort of.
I tend to I think working with my hands is a big part of what I do, and also the process of making is with my hand. Like, you know, like often when I'm working in nature, I'm all I have is my hands, and I'm working with my hands with whatever material I'm using,
right, to
try to manipulate and to restructure or reorder into a form or like a figure. Like one example was mud body, which is similar to an animated yard work, where I laid down on the bank of the river by the old man, and I traced out my body with a stick, and then I dug out the cavity of the body, and then once that was done, I was able to find a bucket. There was a bucket nearby, actually, where someone had a camp. And they had a fire, and there was a bucket there. So I found this bucket, and I was able to get water from the river and fill the cavity with water. So there's this kind of cavity of this body with a pool of water inside it, with the body. And so then, you know, it was a moment of documenting that piece, you know. So
well, with a lot of your pieces, documentation is key, because they're pieces that you're doing in the environment, or that can be then affected by the environment. Do you go back? I mean, that one maybe the lifespan would be smaller, but a lot of your works that I see that you've done around, do you then go like the next year, 6 months later, or 2 years to see? I see. Some of them are really fleeting. Like some of them are 20-minute. So did you do the heart at Lundbrook?
No, the heart at Lundbrook, no.
You didn't?
No.
No? Oh, man, I was trying to figure out who did it.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it might be you, but anyway.
There's a heart at Lundbrook?
You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh.
I probably wouldn't do a heart.
Okay.
I wouldn't be interested in doing something like that.
It's so lovely, though.
Yeah,
I was so sure in my mind that you must have done that. Anyways, it's just a heart, but it's big.
Yeah.
And it's down, so the Lundbrook Falls.
Yeah.
And so then, you know, down there's kind of the pool part that takes off into the river part. Mm-hmm. Someone has gone where it's fairly shallow, where you can come down from, so it's the south, anyways, sort of down in one of the spots you look over, and they've dug out rocks and made them just in heart shape around the outside. So there's like now a little pool in there.
Oh, okay.
But the pool, I don't know, it's about the size of this space, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like a nice size, and it, the way it really hit me, of course I collect heart-shaped rocks too, so I'm cheesy. But also it's such an international gathering there every time you're there.
Right.
With a lot of the tourists that are coming by and stuff like that, right? And there's a million languages you can hear being told sort of around you, and to me, then everyone knew what the heart means, though, right?
Yeah.
So everyone felt that, and so you could have it as like a heart for nature, you could have it as cheesy as you want to make it, and you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, I thought it was quite lovely, but I was like, who would have done that? But because that would be lovely. I haven't just come upon any of your work, but I think that must be so lovely when people do, when they're just out walking and all of a sudden there's this lovely little thing that makes you think, right? It's hard to, like, I often do work off the beaten path. So sometimes, like, I think a lot of the work is really someone going out of their way to be off trail and they would stumble upon it. But I know people who have stumbled upon my work before. Yeah. You know, and in some ways I wish I could share it more with people on site. Yeah. Because sometimes, like, documenting the work is good, but it's not as impressive as seeing the work in person, you know, like being around the work, being there while the light is changing, you know, and that sort of thing. But what I've done recently is I've done a couple works, and I've had I took the GPS coordinates and I've given them to friends to kind of search out and find. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do that more. I don't want to get into it being a geocaching thing.
All right.
I could go on the geocaching website. I've thought of that actually, and doing works and then having geocachers come and find them. And actually, my idea was to put a box of pictures of the intervention so that they could take home with them.
Ah.
So they find that site, they see the intervention, and then they find the box, and then in the box is a little envelope with a picture of the work.
Should get them then to like have the envelope stamp on it so they can send you a little thank you note.
Yeah.
Or hey, we are from here and we found your place. Like that'd be kind of fun to be able to hear back.
I think I'll definitely like visit the idea of like having people go try to search for the work and think of ways of doing that, going about that.
Yeah.
You know, like if there is an opportunity for an outdoor exhibition or something where it gets a bit of funding, you know, and we can
probably it will, because that's going to be the bit for a while.
Yeah.
Is outside kind of stuff is going to be.
Yeah.
So I know that I saw your pieces that you were talking about making these like tree ring sort of what do you call them?
Woodcut prints? Yeah.
Okay. Did I just say log something, didn't I?
Tree ring prints.
Tree ring prints. But what sort of led you up to that part? What sort of led you to that part, I guess?
I guess my interest in sculpture and in sculpting in wood. Mm-hmm. And you know, like I part of it was wanting to propose a new body of work. So I was proposing a show for CASA in 2017. Yeah. And I wanted to embark on a new body of work. And
no pun intended.
So basically it was like I had come across this artist, Brian Nash Gill, and he's kind of one of the pioneers of printing doing the woodcut prints. And I saw a YouTube video of him doing a print, and I thought I wanted to learn the process, and I wanted to kind of work with printing from the stumps, but also the stumps were also going to be sculptures that I formed and sculpted into. Yeah. And so there's a relationship between printmaking and sculpture, and then also the relationship between the form of the tree, the physical form of the tree, and then the inner form of the tree, like the tree rings. So I was interested in the relationship between the inner and outer forms of the tree, and the language of the tree, you know, like how a tree can, like, you know, through the rings reveal a lot about the tree, like how well the growing season was based on the width of the rings. So
the width,
the further the width, the more the growth. So the better the rain, the better the balance of seasonal conditions.
Oh, I wondered about that.
And then also if you got a wider ring on one side and a shorter ring on the other, that side was probably in the shade. Oh. Right. So there's a lot of factors, and the study of tree rings, you can they study tree rings, dating tree rings is called dendrochronology. It's a study of going back and taking core samples of trees and then learning about the climate based on the core samples of the trees and stuff like that. So
it's absolutely amazing.
It's really interesting. So I mean, trees are, they're kind of a wealth of knowledge, you know, like they can tell us a lot about our world.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
and so did you say that the soft part is like the summer growth? Like, so when you're looking at a tree and there's summer. Oh, okay.
So in the ring, between the rings, well, in the ring itself, there's kind of a softer and a harder part of the ring. And so the softer part will burn away and leaving it, it'll burn away quicker because it's softer. And
Right. Yeah. So would you say you're an environmental activist, and that's why you create the work, or is it because you enjoy nature?
Well, I'm an environmental activist as well. Like I will defend the environment, and I will do whatever I can to speak out for the environment and try to live in ways that are reasonably sustainable. Yeah. So yes, I like Jason Kenney recently with these parks. These parks wanting to shut down Alberta parks. I recently did a painting where I had an old. I found a a garage store by. It was like a big landscape painting, and
I'm smiling because I know the one you're talking about, and I love it so much.
And it has it's like just a cheesy landscape of the mountain of these mountains.
Yeah.
And then inside in that painting, I did a little intervention. I painted a park sign with like Alberta Parks font and everything, and it said this provincial park is now closed.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect little intervention because it's kind of poignant because this is this beautiful place, this pristine wilderness.
Yeah.
And it's kind of glorifying it in a way, like it's making the park look like it's this, majestic, awe-inspiring. Not all parks are that awe-inspiring.
No.
But it makes a point, right? And the point is that our parks are these natural spaces that need to be preserved and set aside, and we need to move more towards that, not further away from it.
I know.
Like we don't need to reduce the natural spaces that we have. We need to make more, set aside more
and look
land.
After the ones that we have.
Exactly. We don't. So it's just I think the government's going in the wrong direction. So that work was kind of a fun work. I had the idea as soon as I saw the painting. I knew I was going to paint that sign into it. Yeah. And I was thinking of doing other ones where like pipeline ones, like pipeline construction. No trespassing kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
but I don't know. We'll see. How that goes.
Or you don't own this view anymore. Like to me, that was kind of what I thought when I looked at the painting that you did, because already I'm the viewer of it, right?
Yeah.
And then, but now all of a sudden it's putting it's sort of like looking at those real estate, like
yeah.
I mean, even though it's way prettier, but like you're going along and there's a house and you're looking and it's like, okay, oh, no, that one's sold or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I can still see it, but then I can't really see it or have it or be there or do anything, right? So it still has the picture there. And when I looked at that, it just had such a classical look to it, like especially because you say you got the font just perfect and everything.
Yeah.
Sort of had this classical look, and yet, then it left, our parks are just like any other real estate, And my growing up, like our parks were, I don't know, they were everything, right? We had on television, they had all the funky little in the wilderness
parks
things.
Are so important for our health and well-being, and for the wildlife, for everything. I mean, they function in such a great way. Yeah. I mean, whenever Albertans first set up parks, like we had those were great ideas. Like, I mean, setting aside land to protect.
Yep.
Those are really great ideas to have. Like they're really valuable, and you can see the importance of nature in our lives and how it enriches our lives. So. Yeah,
and yet for some reason we're not taking care of it very well.
No.
And I'm speaking to Annie just like actually this week, right? Annie Martin, and she was talking too about nature and what's happening there and how it I don't know, that there just isn't that appreciation anymore, and this whole thing of dying and not taking care of things. And I don't know, we just kept talking about the environment. It just kept coming around. It kept coming around because it's not just even the being pretty part. Like, it's not even just sort of having a nice place to go have a picnic. I mean, that's not all that is, right? I mean, it's keeping us alive. Like, it's not just enriching our eyes, it's also enriching the very air we breathe. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Like it's not been giving any of the credit, like Kenny's just sort of treating it as if it's just his to dole out or sell or or whatever.
More coal mines. Like, it seems like we need to be transitioning away from coal, and we're moving toward it. Like, I know. We're going, it's kind of weird.
So, but thinking of that and looking at your work and how it does speak about nature and almost sort of highlights nature, and are there or have you thought of doing any works that are very interventionist, that are...
What do you mean by interventionist?
I don't know.
You mean political?
I guess like really like poking the bear. I don't know. I'm trying to think of anything I can think of, but just something that really does kind of sort of poke the bear. And because your works are so poignant, maybe it is better when they have...
I've done some I have done a few works like that are land art works that are political in nature. Yeah. One was I went to Governor State University. I was invited to go to Governor State University to do a land art piece.
Where's that?
It's outside of Chicago.
Oh, yeah, cool.
In Illinois. So basically my idea was to Maya Angelou had a tweet: "The ache for home lives in all of us, a safe place where we can go as we are and not be questioned." So my idea was to do the first part of her quote and dig it into the lawn at Governor State University. The ache for home lives in all of us. And it was during the time when Donald Trump was about to be elected, or he was running for president. And he was promising that if he was elected, he would turn away all the Muslim refugees, and he would allow no refugees in the country. And, you know, he was really against supporting any of the refugees from Syria who are fleeing for their lives.
Yeah.
And so my idea, like Maya Angelou had basically made this quote, and it addressed this need in all of us that we all yearn to have. We all yearn to have a home. Like, you know, like the ache for home lives in all of us. You know, so I thought, you know, as a way of addressing the commonality, the commonality between all of us. Like, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
Regardless of race, religion, we all yearn to have a safe place to call home, you know? And so while the government's calling out all these people who are fleeing for their lives and in such desperate need of help, you know, I thought this would be a way of countering that kind of attitude and those kinds of discriminatory, racist, not homophobic, but
what time of, well, in a way, because when you talk about home, you know, there's so many different things that home can be too, right? So
then, like, that was to create a dialogue and to bring awareness about our shared humanity, you know, as human beings all wanting to have a safe place to call home, and to shed light on the refugees that were all displaced, you know, because at that time there were more refugees displaced than ever in human history. There are 59.5 million, there are 60 million people displaced in the world.
Wow.
During that time.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm trying to think what year that was.
I know, I'm trying to think too. It was like 2013 or something, wasn't it?
No, it was later than that. Maybe it was...
Oh, no, wait, we're at 20. Yeah, right.
Maybe 2015?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, you probably,
I
don't know.
I should know the date, but anyway, so yeah, like, and it was a response, and so this quote, I basically created it on tar paper. I had created this massive stencil, and then we took the stencil on the lawn, we spray painted the stencil, and then we dug out the text into the earth.
Right.
And the text was kind of a heavy Arial font. So it was actually kind of true to the font. So it looked like, you know, fairly well. It wasn't just like hacked out of the lawn.
Oh, no. Yeah, because I'll put a picture up as well. But no, I did see that, and it was very crisp and clean.
Yeah.
And had like, you'd swear you just almost stamped it out with a cookie cutter in a way.
Yeah.
Because it was just so perfect. And then there were photos too where there was snow in it, right?
Yeah. So while we were there, we had dug it out and it was finished.
Yeah.
But then we had a snowfall come through. It snowed the next, like, a couple days later, and so I documented it after the snow had fallen on it. And
it looked so pretty.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was, the snow it created a more subtle kind of you could still read the text, but it was very subtle.
Yeah. Beautiful both ways. It would have been interesting then if you could have planted something in too, right? So then in the spring
that
it
was
comes up
possibly
again.
an idea, but there wasn't enough funding, or the project kind of ended at that point.
Yeah.
So it's too bad. We did want to plant flowers or plant the plants in it. So yeah, that was an idea. Yeah.
That sounds like some great guerrilla gardening ideas.
Yeah. I would like to visit that, digging the text out of areas in, you know, with other slogans. Yeah.
And so, sort of, what are some other things? So we've talked about printmaking. You like doing, obviously, landscape art and working in the landscape, using it both as material but also as place. Yeah. What other sort of forms do you like, or have you investigated, or?
Well, like, generally, I'm generally a sculptor. Like, I'm at heart a sculptor, I would say. So I'm really interested in sculpture. Like, I like working with wood. I like working the relationship between materials. Yeah. So while I was at the university in Glenn McKinnon's class, we I did a series of aluminum cast works, actually. So I learned how to aluminum cast, 2-part mold aluminum cast.
Did you have to do the anvil? Everyone had to make anvils in this class.
I think I made an anvil. I think yeah. So
I think we had to start there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, but what were you saying you were making out of aluminum?
So I was doing aluminum cast, and then eventually I started creating these landscape topographies. So I would take clay and I would put couple up newspaper, and then lay the clay over top of the newspaper, and it would create these kind of what looked like coolie landscapes.
Right.
And then after that, I would cast these in aluminum. I would make the clay sculptures would become molds that I would mold with the sand around, and then I'd make aluminum artworks out of these landscape pieces.
I don't have any knowledge of doing aluminum casting.
Yeah.
So bear with me. Is it like doing any other metal casting? Is it?
Yeah.
You just melt it and sort of put it in. And what's aluminum like when it's liquid?
Well, yeah, it's like ridiculous. Like you have a crucible and everything that the aluminum is melted in, right?
Yeah.
But basically, you have a mixer, and you have to get your sand a perfect moisture, dry moisture balance. It has to be like enough that you can squeeze it together and it'll hold together.
Yeah.
But not too wet that it's too sticky. Like it has to stick, but it has to be it has to be the perfect amount of moisture. And then you basically have a kind of like a box that you fill the aluminum in.
Okay.
Or actually, you have a it's been a while, but you have a platform, and then you put this box over the platform, and you put your sculpture on the base,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And then you talc it up with talcum powder so that the sand doesn't stick around it.
Yeah.
And then these are 2-part molds. So they have to come apart in 2 parts. They're not like bronze casting.
Right. That's I guess what I was wondering.
So then you would fill it up with the sand.
Yeah.
And then you have to ram it up with a jackhammer kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And then so it packs the sand really tight around your piece. Then you flip that thing over, and you excavate the halfway seam of your piece.
Oh.
And then you basically have to put another piece that goes over top of that piece. It has posts that line it up and everything. And then you basically talcum powder it again, and then you ram up another thing of sand on top of that. And then you take those 2 pieces apart, and you take your piece out, and then you've got to drill holes where the aluminum comes in, where it's going to run and fill in your piece, and then where it's going to come back out.
And if you've got any little bits there that aren't working right,
yeah. And then after that, then you heat up the aluminum, you melt it, you get it really hot, like 5,000 degrees or something.
Yeah.
And then you basically have 2 guys holding these poles, and you got to pour it in.
Oh my gosh.
And I've done the whole pouring and everything.
Yeah.
It was quite a good. I liked it. It was really neat.
Yeah.
It was a neat experience. Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds like it would be too fiddly for me.
Yeah.
But at least a bronze casting, you can kind of just pour it in the sand.
I had Catherine, Ross, and Kevin who were really helpful, and they're all about getting your hands dirty, get in there and do it and learn it, and so we got to do everything.
When I was in university, my last year or something, I think Nick Wade hired me to work in the sculpture studio.
Yeah.
And I don't think Catherine had like any say in it.
Okay.
And because she was away or something, and so then I came back, and I don't necessarily. My dress might not be. I don't know. I came in. She's like, you cannot have sleeves that hang down like this. Laura Lee, like, get your hair back, get your sleeves shortened. So, and we're very close friends now. But it was hilarious. You could just see when I started walking towards her. But because she was all about getting in there and getting dirty, and it was. That's one of the nice things about university is having a space where you can go and try everything, like things you couldn't afford to do, things you don't have the equipment to do, and you can sort of get in and not only be sort of yes it's okay, but all the help to be able to do it and that kind of thing. But so when did you come down here then? Like, so if you finished at ACAD, then when did you come to Lethbridge?
I moved here in 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I spent a bit of time out in Castle Mountain and Waterton.
Why did you settle here? You've been here for a while now then.
Yeah.
15 years at least. Did you think it was going to be 15 years?
No, I didn't.
No.
No, I didn't think I'd end up in Lethbridge, but I did, yeah.
Yeah. And do you think this is where you're going to stay?
Oh yeah, I bought a house here. I'll be here for a while.
Yeah. So what brought you here to Lethbridge?
I was really just, I was in Calgary, and then I met somebody that was like, you should try to move to Lethbridge and see if you like it, because it's kind of a neat community. And I started meeting a few people and staying here. Yeah. And it's just the way it worked out, So, yeah.
That is the way it is sometimes, right? Where especially because you probably thought, being from Glenbrook, like you just don't want to be in Lethbridge, right? I mean, you're... Yeah.
I kind of ended a relationship in Calgary, so it was difficult to go back.
Oh.
And so it was kind of like, I don't know if I was running away from something, but it was hard to go back to Calgary after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I
quite a big city,
It is a big city. Yeah, and housing's more expensive, so
yeah.
I don't think I could afford to own a house in Calgary.
Probably not. No, it's crazy there.
Really hard to buy a place, but Lethbridge I bought a place, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's we were talking briefly before that you do also some art with seniors and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what do you find yourself trying to do the same sorts of things that you do, but bringing it down to their level? Or, I mean, because with this artistic background and then being able to share that as a therapy, really.
Yeah.
Has that informed your work, or your work informed it?
Well, working with seniors it can be really challenging sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you've got a senior that really, like someone that really likes crafts, then it's great.
Yeah.
But if someone you're trying to encourage and give them a chance, like a lot of seniors, like throughout their lives, have been taught that art is something, if you can't draw a horse really well, you're not an artist.
Yeah.
And and sometimes it's very hard to teach people to experiment and to just play and have fun.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, I think, get ingrained, and people think, well, and some residents, like sometimes seniors, have a hard time trying to just let go of having it turn out perfect, or just enjoying the creative process of just being able to play with the paint, experiment, but not all of them. Like some of them are really great at that too, and some of them have fun, and but it's challenging. It can be challenging, but it can also be really rewarding too. I've had many times where they really enjoyed what they did, and I think the projects that we take on tend to be fairly basic. We even draw from some of the like early young adult projects, because you only have an hour and a half, and time is limited, and there's art isn't the only program you're running. So you have to kind of do things, and there's a wide interest as well. You have residents that are interested in more craft things. You have residents that like painting. You have residents that don't like painting. So you try to address different areas, and but I brought some projects that I like to do and introduced it to them.
Do you think there's anything that you're getting from them that ends up being expressed art-wise, or more just?
I think if I made it a project to, like, actually what I want to do is we want to have an art show with the residents. We want to have an art opening. So we're basically, the COVID thing put a whole damper on that. We had planned an art show, like a 60s themed art show, because it was the 60th anniversary of Green Acres.
Oh,
so we had planned a 60s themed art show, and we were going to do a big mural where everybody was a part of the mural. And then we had other projects where some residents like painting rocks, so we were doing a series of rock paintings. And so we wanted to show all the different talents of our residents.
Oh, that's too bad.
And but it's been put on hold because of COVID. We can't have an art opening because we can't invite people into our lodge. We can't invite a group of people, So when it's over, though, we'll probably do it. But so I mean, projects like that, like where we get them involved. I also I like to give residents a camera and let them just go take pictures. I mean, I want to show them how to take a picture. And I want them to just go take the camera and take pictures. And just whatever they come back with, I'll try to pick the best ones, or they can pick the best. We can decide on which ones that we think are the best, and
and being able to have the digital aspect is so great for something like that, right? Because someone can take 100 pictures. I don't care who you are, too. If you're taking 100 pictures, you're going to have some real good ones in there, too, right?
That's true,
You have some really bad ones, probably mostly bad ones. But, some little great way things are looked at. And I find, too, when people who aren't necessarily or wouldn't ever call themselves artistic are all of a sudden given free rein and put, no, that's not necessarily exactly, this is also an interesting way to look at things. Find that, once you sort of open that up to what art can be, and
totally,
then that's kind of almost the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Maybe before than anything they make. That camera idea sounds lovely.
Yeah.
So what else do you do, or what else interests you? Or I know, and maybe just as well as I do from art, with you working with Amnesty International, right? And doing a lot of the letter writing and that kind of thing. Can you tell me a bit about that? And
so like we do a monthly letter writing, but we had to go online with that. So we usually write on pressing human rights issues around the world.
Right.
So there's all sorts of things going on. Like our recent one was in Nigeria, the police are cracking down on protesters. Protesters are protesting because the police are killing and murdering people. And then there's like the police brutality is really bad. Yeah. And there's a kind of a faction of the police that we're basically killing people and torturing them and raping women, and so people were protesting this, and then there was actually killings of the protesters. Like 12 people were shot down. So we're writing to the government in Nigeria to put an end to this violence and to investigate those who were murdered, and the police who murdered those people, and to end the violence. So we basically write on human rights issues. We have a monthly letter writing circle that we do. Normally it's in person at the Owl on the first Tuesday of the month from 7 to 9 p.m.
Okay.
But lately we've been just doing a virtual online letter writing. But coming up on December 10th is International Human Rights Day, and we're doing a Write for Rights. So we'll be doing a letter writing at the Owl. It's going to be, we're going to take into account all the COVID issues of, physical distancing, social distancing, and try to make it safe for everybody.
Yeah.
And we don't expect to get tons of people. Like we're expecting to get maybe, maybe if we get 5 people, I'd be happy.
Yeah.
But then we're also going to do a virtual online letter Write for Rights as well.
Yeah.
That'll coincide with that. So we'll hopefully get some letters written and help free some prisoners of conscience, people who are speaking out for various rights, LGBTQI, people, Indigenous land defenders. So we write letters for all those people, like through Amnesty. So
Have you? This is maybe a daft question. Is Lundbrook Falls? How does it go with Indigenous? Well, we're all on Indigenous land. Everything in Canadian is Indigenous land, but with the territory there, like how does Lundbrook fit in there? I guess what I'm asking is that something that you take into account in your work, because you're right from this, we're living in southern Alberta, where we live in an amazing land, and it was owned by Blackfoot, well still is owned by, and so it just all of a sudden struck me as I was talking, if that has made a way into your work, or how, especially living in Lundbrook, where in southern Alberta we deal with so much racism too. And so was Lundbrook that way, just like we all are here in?
Well, in Lundbrook, like I grew up kind of in a I would say a fairly racist, not upbringing, but like around a lot of racism. But I had a great social teacher who basically, he taught us about the residential schools. He taught us about, he was interested in the Blackfoot history in terms of like how they hunted, and taught us all about, how they live sustainably on the land, and just gave us a lot of inside knowledge that we normally didn't have. And he was very well connected with them, and so without having a teacher like that, like I think my understanding, and I'm still learning. I'm definitely learning a lot about respecting that we're on Blackfoot territory. This is Blackfoot territory, and making that kind of part of your awareness, So, but as a child growing up, there was a bit of that, but it was more. I don't think I didn't really learn. That wasn't an acknowledgement until later.
Yeah.
I mean, there was. Yeah. I mean, kind of in ways that when you're young and you're just connecting with the environment, there's kind of this sense of sacredness to the land and respect for all things, and
because I didn't grow up in southern Alberta, so I mean I've been here for like 30 plus years, but I didn't grow up here, and so it just always seems to me like it's such a rich space, and as an adult there's so much for me to learn about what's going on historically and just even physically in our landscape and that. But I often wonder if you grow up here and so you're going through the schooling, and I just sort of wondered how that would affect it. I had friends. I was an assistant for one of her movies, and they were from Ontario, and she did coolies used to be a slang for black people. No, a slang for the N-word, basically, was the word coolie. And so then when she came here, and we were always like, oh, the coolies, you go walk in the coolies, she was like, what? It was just sort of this way of thinking about language and the environment, right? Okay. And so I just sort of wonder too sometimes I don't feel like, and I know it doesn't happen in my art because, I'm not Indigenous, but we don't get to see it as much. We're surrounded here in southern Alberta by so much Indigenous everything, and yet it doesn't get showcased as much. Anyways, that was just an aside, I guess. Yeah. Just a curiosity for someone who, because you kind of grew up and around here, so I was just kind of curious. Yeah. What would you say? Who's your influences in the art world?
I have a lot of influences, Peter von Tiesenhausen has influenced me. His work, he's a very local Alberta artist. Yeah. And what he's done, his work has influenced me. And Tony Gormley was a big influence on my work. A lot of the land artists like Richard Long, Andy Goldsworthy, Chris Drury. I like a lot of the British. There seems to be a group of British artists that I really like. I like Giuseppe Pannoni. He's an Art Povera artist. And
I don't know.
He basically, Art Povera was like a movement of using found objects. As Art Povera means, it translates as art of poverty or something, or something like that. Because you're just using whatever's available. And so Giuseppe Pannoni was part of this Art Povera movement. And so he made objects with whatever he would find, but he also did bronze casts, and but he works with trees, and he's the artist that basically had a huge log and then would find the inside part of the tree within the log, and carved out the basic by carving out the tree rings, or by following the knots in the tree, he was able to reveal the young tree within the bigger tree.
Oh, really?
It's a monumental artwork. It would have taken him years to accomplish.
Wow.
But he would follow the knots of the tree and reveal the inside branches of a younger tree within this older massive tree.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So he's done some really neat work.
I'll have to write that name down so I don't forget and be able to look him up and share it too. That sounds stunning. But it's Did you well, you had to have met Carl Granzow, did you?
Yeah, I took a class with Carl Granzow.
That's, I wondered if you had any
Yeah.
classes with him.
Yeah.
Just because he's such a, was such a force, and especially then with...
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
He's the one who really set me on my course for kind
Yeah.
of going out and working in nature mostly.
Yeah.
Before that, I really wasn't sure of myself. And so in his class, we were to make these 6 outdoor interventions. We basically would meet in class,
Yeah.
and then we'd have a week break to make our work.
Yeah.
But in that week, we wouldn't be in the gallery, we wouldn't be in the studio. We'd be out making some intervention in the landscape, or in the city, in the urban area of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got used to working in nature through Carl's class. Like, I got more confident, and created my first early works were created in Carl's class. Like my that's when I started doing the mud body series, and just getting more my hands dirty, my feet wet, basically.
Yeah.
Honing my skills, like, learning what it takes to make a 4-hour intervention in the landscape, with your hands, and utilizing the color of a material, or utilizing the form of a material, or sculpting with the mud on a tree, So a lot of that is just experimenting and kind of going out, and sometimes you don't even know you're going to make that day. You just go out with your camera and your tripod, and you just start walking, and then you see something in the landscape that grabs your attention.
Yeah.
And maybe the site is interesting, or there's something on the site that's interests you. And so I remember one of my first works was basically creating this yellow field of grass across this beaver dam. So it was this line of yellow grass across this beaver dam, and it was windy, and it was really windy. So there was this beautiful tall kind of reed grass growing on the banks in a channel of the Old Man.
Yeah.
And so I would walk across this beaver dam. I didn't have any tools with me, so I had to basically just kind of rip out this grass, and I had to walk back across the beaver dam and get a tuft of it, and then put a stone down so it didn't blow away, and then walk all the way back, and this would just be like one little bit done at a time. So I was really testing my patience. Is like I'm gonna have to do this like over and over again for hours, and so a lot of times, like, it's a way of working through things and working with your own mind.
Yep.
Like, you're trying to be patient. And
I did one, speaking of that, and it was, we had to go do one out in the coulees or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so for my final one, rose hips were everywhere. So I was like, oh, and I'm a hippie girl. So I was like, oh, rose hips. Oh, this is, so I'll gather these. And so I took I took a casting of my ass, basically, and then was gathering all these rose hips, because it was that time of year, and putting them in. But I forgot that they would like start shrinking, right? Like they dry out, and then they shrink, and I would be like, it was so many rose drops or rose hips, you don't even want to know. But it was that same thing though, where it was this going and gathering, and then it was, and I ended up putting together some poetry in that with it, because and I'm sure with the grass, there's all kinds of words that are coming into your head, right? Because it's such a meditative thing that you're in the space. So yes, it's small, and it goes on, and it takes so much, but the meditative aspect of it is stunning, right? Because you're focused on a task, I guess. Yeah. So what did you, with the reeds, I have to go back to my imagination now. So it was
a kind of a reed grass, yeah.
Right, but it was a yellowy color.
Yeah. So I created this yellow line across the beaver dam.
Wowza.
And it worked out really well. It was one of my first pieces.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well.
Oh, cool.
And I think just the sheer determination to finish it, like, it'd be so easy to say, oh, this is too hard, and give up.
Yeah.
But, after I spent enough time on it, it worked out quite well. So
you're like the beaver. You're a busy beaver, right?
Yeah.
So I guess, am I understanding you correctly? That's sort of where you decided that maybe there was an art form that could come out of your appreciation and influence within nature. Is that kind of where that got built up more, or? Yeah,
because of like living in Lake Louise, and I did a lot of backpacking. I hitchhiked up to the Yukon. I did a lot of hiking in the mountains, And I was aware of Richard Long's work before I had traveled, and I'd always really identified with his works, the rock lines in the landscape.
Oh,
and
okay.
I've always like been in places and just felt like, oh, I'd like to make a land artwork, but just had to hike on or had to keep moving or whatever. Couldn't stop in that location to do that.
Yeah.
But then when I got the tools, like Carl's class kind of opened me up to facilitating that. And so then when I started making that work, I always wanted to make. And because I enjoy being in nature, I enjoy the outdoors, I enjoy the meditative aspect of being in the land, like outside, and relating to the land, and connecting with the land, you know, in a tactile way, you know. So that.
When you said you always want to do that, do you mean the yellow line on the?
No, just working in the landscape. Like I've always wanted to create.
I was like, that was something you had in your brain?
Artworks in the landscape.
Yeah.
I had a really strong yearning because it just. Part of it, like, I mean, there's a number of things, and part of it is also that you create a work that is impermanent. Like it just evolves back into nature, but it's very sustainable. Like you're leaving very little you're not really leaving a carbon footprint. Yeah. You're not buying new materials. You're not introducing something new to the environment. You're using what is there.
Yeah.
And then it's a very almost like it connects back to all these ancient civilizations connected to the land in many ways. Whether they were like the Peruvians who had a little hole in a rock and were able to view the stars through a puddle in a stone, you know, and that's how they would do their astronomy.
Oh, really?
Or, you know, the Blackfoot who had these medicine wheels that were calendars.
Yeah.
Or, you know, even the pyramids of Egypt, you know, they were remarkable, you know, pieces. You have the Easter Island figures.
Yeah.
So I mean, throughout history, it's something that's part of who we are as people, to connect and relate to the land, you know, in a deeper way. And I think that's why I like it so much. It's just,
So it's something you're driven to do.
Yeah.
So are you so I'm thinking, I was looking at a few photos, and you have the ones with like the snow rings on the trees.
Yeah.
They're like external, so they're like rings that you've actually put like a ring of snow on the tree bark.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so or there's lots of other designs I saw too.
Yeah.
But when you do that, or when you do any of your works that are much more out in nature, and who knows who might come upon them, do you know when you, like, are you doodling at home and going, oh, I think circles today?
It's an ongoing process. Like I learned I could pack snow on trees.
Yeah.
And I could actually scrape away the snow and make drawings. And then from that, I started with one of my first pieces was like a square.
Yeah.
You know, and then I moved on from that, and I started doing like more like snow circles, you know, patterns on trees. And so the way, like, I found that basically it has to be like -10 or colder.
Oh, okay.
Before the snow will stick. If it's too warm, it won't stick. If it's too warm, if it's warm enough, it might stick, but it'll melt on the tree, leaving a wet mark. So that's something aesthetically that I don't want the wet mark, because it kind of taints the piece, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So you learn through basically experimenting and being out there.
Yeah.
So then I would pack the snow on the tree, and it would end up as a solid mass. But then I'd take a stick and slowly carve away and make drawings on the tree.
Yeah.
With snow drawings. So they almost look like they're spray painted on, but they're not.
Yeah.
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 And then one of the latest things I've done was to create illusions with multiple trees, and to create like a rectangle within a multiple grouping of trees. So from a certain perspective, it looks like a flat rectangle within this space, but as you step away from that angle, it all falls apart, and you see all these different marks and lines on the trees. And some of them are this wide, and some of them are this wide.
And how did you figure all that? Well, I don't want to, like, you know, make you give me all of your secrets.
It's actually quite easy. You just look from a perspective in your camera.
Yeah.
And then you visualize where that would go on that tree, and then you walk out to that tree, and you put the snow on the tree, and if it's wrong, you got to come back and check it, and then if it's wrong, you have to adjust it.
Wow.
And it's just a matter of, you know.
Yeah.
There's an artist, and I can't remember his name, but he does these big illusions in rooms, and he's famous, and he's really, and I was influenced by his work too, doing these. But he has teams of people that basically set up these massive illusions.
Yeah.
And they could be done, and I don't know that I want to go to, like, I would like to do, I'd like to do more, follow through with that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But I find land art there's a lot of decorative, like land art's become quite decorative, and I don't know, for me, I kind of want to stray away from it being, I like to be a little bit conceptual, like, I like it to have to kind of somehow move the viewer, and to see something in it that moves them, that makes them inspired, but not just something that's pretty, you know. So
when it can do both, it's nice.
That's true.
Yeah. And I find that your work does, like, your work is very pretty to look at. Like, it's, I don't think I've seen anything that I didn't think was, everything sort of has a really visceral, wonderful sort of feeling, whether it's on like a vellum that's really flat or whatever, right? It's nice to look at, and yet it's just imbued with all kinds of meaning, like it's almost inferred. When you take a tree and make a print of it, right now there's just so many things that can be filled into what they can be, and beauty is one of them too. That's nice.
And I think the tree mirrors our cosmos. Like the rings of the tree is like a universe in a sense. Like it radiates outward, and it's like almost like the creation of the world. You know? Like it represents that creation kind of aspect. It mirrors back to us that creation.
Just like all that stuff, it fascinates the heck out of me. And I guess I'd say I'm more agnostic, but so then if I don't believe that there was this one person that...
No, I'm not saying a creator.
No, I know you're not. No, I know you're not, but I'm saying, to me, it almost feels like when people talk about God, that's when I can kind of see how they think that, because they're like, this is amazing, this can't have just happened. And of course I don't think it just happened either, but I don't know, and because there's so many things where you're right, like our trees are mirroring the rings that we have in this, like everything does, like it's no, it's like completely right on that it mirrors all of that. I'm just like, I know, so why, what does that mean? I'm a woman, and I'm so lucky because, like, literally my body is attached to the moon and whatever the heck's going on with the moon, right? What? Like, how does that happen? Like, it just blows my mind, all these questions. And in a way, by just being able to see nature in a way that we're not accustomed to seeing it, I think can make us ponder those issues more, right? To bring us back to, like, not to have an answer, but like to keep thinking about that, and why is that? And here is something that a tree that feeds us oxygen and all kinds of things, and then back into the soil and is feeding us that way. Like, they're so complex, and I don't think anyone really knows the answers, right? So that's kind of wonderful. I guess we all get to figure it out. Or do you have all the answers? Should we get that on tape right now? No, but wouldn't it be grand? But otherwise, I think it's the questions maybe are more important than the answers anyway. Well, it's important to ponder, to think about. Did someone create this, or like, is there a being, an omniscient being that created this, or does it arise out of the spontaneous nature of just like creative energy? Well, because molecules are like that too, right? Aren't molecules kind of circular, or is that just in school we learned that they were like that? But like molecules, right? The kind of like the way that they go together, you have the different. Maybe not. Never mind. But so what are you on to next, or what do you? I have a show coming up at Frank Gallery. So I'm planning on doing some woodcut prints. Oh, good. And then, but it's gonna be combined with sculptures from wood that the prints were taken from. Some of the prints will be taken from these sculptures. And I'm also going to really kind of explore. I have some ideas about trying to create some wood sculpture that employs
like deals with form and the relationship between its parts.
Yeah.
The relationship between the form and trying to incorporate different elements of wood, like willow and stumps, together to create pods or
cool.
kinds of objects like that. Integrating, kind of mixing two types of wood together.
Yeah.
And then having a show of sculpture and prints, and some of the sculptures the prints will be taken from.
Right.
So
right.
yeah.
Oh, very cool.
But I'm not sure with COVID right now how things when I'm having this show. I'm a little uncertain as to when it's going to happen.
Right.
And so I don't know what my timeline is, and
well, your website's really easy to like maneuver in it, and unlike a lot of our websites, yours actually seems up to date.
somewhat up to date.
So I'll put the link so that people can see.
Perfect.
Because there is so much of your work, like I say, and
people will get a better idea of, if they see the website, what we're talking about.
Yeah. Because in a way it sounds abstract, even though it's very literal. I take it from.
What does he mean, land art? Like digging mud out of.
Yeah.
You're like digging a body.
Okay, well then, and now we have the thing, right, that's in the river bottom.
Yeah.
Rick and I mentioned it, so you and I should probably mention it too. And being as you're a land artist, then, so what do you think of that? And
it's just the way it is, what it is. Like, it's someone's put a lot of time into making it. It looks like they've really it's really well built, actually.
Yeah.
It's like they've woven in wire and like and woven it so it's quite strong.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I
don't know what else to say about it.
I know. Well, the thing Rick had brought up that was kind of interesting is how it's evolved. So someone built it maybe initially, or perhaps continues.
I have pictures of it when it was this high.
Well,
and
that's
just a little circle of rocks, yeah.
And so
I was down there making work when it was in infancy, when it was just barely I've seen that, and now, like, actually the sad thing is all the trails down there are really packed out, and it gets visited a lot.
Oh.
And it's the trails were never like the way they are now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I remember
it was
really hard to get to.
They were just like little game trails, and you have to cross a beaver dam to get to it, and it was kind of hard to find. Actually, it was fairly well hidden.
Yeah.
But now people like come in droves to go see it. It's kind of cool.
I know. It is. I mean, the thing that's so odd is how it took, like you say, it sort of had its life of its own, and it's evolving and it's growing. And Rick had sort of brought up how there was a point where it was being told the city should take it down because it was too dangerous. And then there was a big writing campaign, don't let the thing go from the... And it was like, it just became this really odd... it's sort of like this punk rock kind of installation art, right? It's like, no, I'm gonna build one for free, and it's this weird definitely has that punk rock aesthetic.
Steampunk,
definitely steampunk
sorta.
No, it is, because you're just taking all these bits, but it seems like people want it to be creepier now, and it's got the doll heads and stuff like that. Don't you think?
I don't know. I'm not really into the doll heads and stuff.
No.
I mean, whatever. I'm not one to judge it. Like, I think whoever made it, they had it's something of a labor of love for them, and people enjoy seeing it, so that's great.
Yeah. Well, and it gets people out there, and also gets people talking about art, so that's okay. Or at least an installation down there. Well, we'll watch out for your other stuff, and I'll make sure that we make the link for your website, because like I say, I thought it was really great because it is fairly up to date, and it just some really nice quality pictures that really give you an idea of what your work looks like. So it's aesthetically a nice website as well.
Thanks.
But it is nice to see the work and see what you do.
Awesome. Well, thank you. This has been good.
Thanks for joining us.
Okay. It's great to be here.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.